Good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk to you this morning about loss prevention in the context of crew claims, and just to understand why loss prevention is important and why loss prevention is necessary. Next slide. Oh, use the key. Okay. Why is it necessary? Well, unfortunately, not everybody around the world has the same ideas of quality and safety as you or I. And also, when we look into incidents, we find that with disappointing regularity, they arise from causes that are eminently avoidable. So to understand why loss prevention activity in this area is important, it's quite informative to look at the numbers. This is our own club's claims experience over the last 3 years. You can see from that the majority of claims we experience are what we describe as routine claims. They're claims below $250,000. But what is striking is that the cost is considerable. We're talking of an average of about $20 million a year. In the 3 years prior to that, it was about $30 million a year. So it's easy to see that if we can save a few percentage points through a loss prevention initiative, that could have quite significant financial benefits. I want to first of all to look at injury claims. Those figures on the preceding slide comprise both illness and injury claims, but looking at injuries, what we find from looking at those is that there are recurrent causes of injury claims. There's a few examples set out on this slide. That's not exhaustive. There are others. But the one that stands out time and time again is this one. It keeps coming up over and over and over again. None of these risks are new. They're all obvious. They're risks that people should have been trained to guard against, and yet they are still succumbing to problems. And the causes are set out there on the slide. And because of the risks, because of the serious risks involved, it is appropriate that both the Tokyo MOU and the Paris MOU are currently conducting a concentrated inspection campaign on enclosed space issues, and they're looking at ships with regard to their familiarity with enclosed space entry procedures, but more importantly, their response to incidents, the drills. That campaign has been going on for a month now, and already in the first month in the Tokyo MOU, there have been 10 ship detentions. There haven't been any figures published yet for the Paris MOU, but I know as a fact that there are vessels that have been detained in the Paris MOU for deficiencies in this area. So it is a concern. It'll be interesting to see what the overall outcome will be. But the focus on drills in relation to enclosed space emergencies is vitally important, and this tells you why. This chart here shows you the effects of a depleted oxygen atmosphere. Now, the normal atmosphere here is about 21% oxygen. The time of useful consciousness is the time in which you can spend in that particular atmosphere and still retain a useful function. So at 21%, that is infinite. I question that because I can think of lots of people who perform no useful function whatsoever in a normal atmospheric conditions, but that's a different issue. But what's alarming from this chart is that as oxygen depletion, or as the oxygen concentration decreases, then the time of useful consciousness diminishes very rapidly. And once you get below 5%, you can measure that in seconds. Now, many people may think that if they go into an enclosed space and there is a problem with the atmosphere, they'll be in a position to deal with it. In short, you won't. You can lose useful function within a matter of seconds. You will not even realize you're getting into difficulty. You will collapse as if you've been hit by a bus. So the two important messages to take away from that is, first of all, don't expose yourself to danger in the first place. Recognize what constitutes an enclosed space, and that may not be as obvious as it seems. There have been casualties where seafarers have gone into enclosed spaces, spaces like chain lockers where the effect of corrosion on steel has depleted the oxygen in that space. They have succumbed to that. But the other important thing is speed of evacuation, because you can see from that chart at the bottom, if you were to get a oxygen concentration of less than 5%, your survival time is measured in minutes. So the speed of getting somebody out of that enclosed space is vitally important. No one should ever pay off a ship like this AB. This is an able-bodied seaman paying off from a ship. You may say, where's the AB? He's in that small box on the left-hand side on the top. That's his ashes. He was a victim of an incident entering an enclosed space and not following correct procedures. That should never happen, and it's a tragedy that it continues to do so. Moving on to illness claims. Again, in a similar way to the injury claims, we find that there are recurrent causes of crew illness. They're set out there, but a number of them are more prominent than others. We can take away those. This is the big one, and the problems it presents are there. Obesity is a major concern because it causes lots of other issues. Obesity is measured by something called the body mass index. That's a function of height and weight. How many of you here know what your BMI is? If you don't, and you're interested to find out, if you know your height and weight, and if you can see that, the figures on that screen, you can interpolate and get the answer. All I would say is if you find yourself in the amber or the red sector, be concerned. The health problems of obesity are set out there, and the causes of it from the bottom are eating too much and moving too little. It's not rocket science, and of course the remedies to that are equally obvious: eat less and move more. But putting that into a seagoing context, the safety implications for obesity for a seafarer, some of them are set out there. I'll just focus on a couple. Does your PPE fit, your personal protective equipment? And even if it does, how quickly can you put it on? And if you are required to respond in an emergency, the picture at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there shows the point at which the AB I referred to earlier lost his life. You can see how narrow that space is. Now imagine if you are the rescuer and you are obese, and even if you've managed to get your PPE on, your breathing apparatus, will you actually fit in that space? And secondly, if you are the casualty and you're obese and you're at the bottom of that space, and as in this case there were two of them, can you actually get that person out? So it's a big problem. Another area that we find that causes lots of claims is high blood pressure or hypertension. This is where your blood pressure is persistently at 140/90, and that the results or the causes of that are similar to obesity. The two things are linked, and the problem with that is the risk of heart attack or stroke. Somebody suffers a heart attack or stroke whilst they're at sea. The consequences could be fatal. And the risk is not just to the individual, it's to other people on board the ship as well, if that happens to be a sole watchkeeper. So it's a serious issue. The causes, generally, what we find is all this is within the control of the individual. It's lack of exercise, dietary choice, and you're all probably familiar with the good dietary choices that are set out there. I don't need to dwell on those, but they need to be emphasized in the seagoing context. The reverse of the coin in the dietary context is the bad things, the bad foods to avoid. The foods that contain empty calories, the foods that contain too much hidden sugar. For example, a can of Coke can contain the equivalent of up to 8 teaspoons of sugar. So water is the best thing to drink in that context, particularly because for those who may be dehydrated, it helps to prevent kidney stones. If you were to get a kidney stone that prevented the flow of urine in mid-ocean, that would seriously spoil your day. Exercise, there's no excuse for exercise on board. Just because a ship may not have a gym, that's irrelevant. This is a poster that's promulgated by the Nautical Institute. It's got a series of exercises there that can be undertaken without the need for any equipment whatsoever. What have we done? Well, the distillation of all of this caused us to produce our latest loss prevention DVD. The reason we did this is that every serious injury or illness claim represents more than just a financial cost to the club and its members. We're dealing with the lives of individuals, and for the victims of serious illness or injury, the consequences can be tragic and devastating. So what we wanted with this product is to make seafarers aware. It is directed to the seafarers, make them aware of why it's important to be at sea. You don't know when an illness is going to strike, nor where the ship is going to be at the time. It explains to them the issues that cause unfitness and illness, and the lifestyle choices that they can make to improve things. And it also encourages them to take a more positive view of the pre-employment medical examination process. Many seafarers see this as an obstacle to employment. They try and subvert it and get round it. What we want them to do is to view it positively, to use it as a tool, as something that will give them a snapshot of their health at any particular point in time, and they can monitor the progress of that through their regular examinations, and that way can prolong their life at sea for the good of themselves and their families. There are copies of the DVD outside if you would like them. If they are insufficient, then you can get further copies either on application to our Payoff office or to me in London. Time is running out. I'll conclude there, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.